Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Gorong Vlogger ng Koi. And today we are going to talk about the topic called fantasy, horror, and the old country. So, have you guys heard about the story? If that's so, let's have a discussion of how I would read a horror story, which was called Martinez. It is basically a story of an interpretatory tales, ancient tales, and folklores we have experienced that it would have turned into a logical and horrifying conclusion that with all of the students shall know in particular. But with society, all of us can actually find the true definition of horror and fantasy, as well as the old country. But without further ado, let's get started. So here is the summary of it. The summary of Ana Felicia Sanchez's story about Martinez is the socio-cultural context pertaining to Filipino folklore and superstitions. Before, Filipinos believed creatures like encantos that guard a single tree or a whole forest, and some lost spirits that wander in some area. The main character, Richard, represents trail of average Filipinos when he has this mentality to adore non-Filipino practices. Some Filipinos think that they have better opportunities outside the country, so they work overseas and the result is they have improved the economy of that country. The theme of Sanchez's story is the love for the country's culture and respect for the others. Here are some social cultural context and the facts about the story of it. Number 1. Filipino folklore and superstitions. In the Filipino folklore, encantos are the closest creatures similar to the stranger in the forest. Like the stranger in the story, encantos are nature spirits known for their either extreme malignant effects or an overwhelming influence of luck. According to myths and folklore, encantos serve as spirit guardian of certain places, especially the forests. Sometimes they dwell on these places, such are large and eminent trees like the acacia and the balete, which serve as a portal to another dimension. The encantos tend to curse humans who dare disturb the place where they guard or dwell. Number 2. Practicing of tradition. The importance of the Servacio clan to the village led to Richard's fate. His clan was one of the families to ever dwell in the village that had received the blessing and the contract of the stranger. Therefore, the Servacio clan are the one who should continue the tradition which was passed from many generations. Number 3. Love for one's culture. The burden of remembering is very symbolic to the love for one's culture. Culture is important to the life of every Filipinos as this influences their views, values, languages, and the other aspects that shapes their perspective, making them unique from other ethnic groups. The story relates to the preserving the culture of the Filipinos, which gives life and color to the land of the Philippines. The new generations of Filipinos are always reminded by the elders to value their culture and preserve it. Just like Richard, who turned his back from his hometown and its values. Without Totoy, he would not have remembered his family values that will lead to the stranger perishing all the boon of nature that she has bestowed. Number 4. Alien to one's own hometown and values. The issue that the protagonist Richard faces is that he is an alien or not familiar with his own hometown and its values. The purpose of Totoy is to remind Richard of his destiny because for too long he has neglected his own place, for he was too proud with the attitude in the urban and his success as a fluent English speaker. His hometown in Batangas was not at all important to him, for he was too blinded with the success of what he dreams of because of too much pride. Richard found himself lost and came back to his hometown to seek comfort. What does Martinez symbolize? Martinez is either the blackbird or the place in Batangas where Richard and Toto had traveled to in this story. But in the context of the story's title, we are referring to the blackbird, which seems to be the stranger's messenger that sends the oldest of the youngest generations to snip their tongue in order to remember. Techni- Technically, Martinez does not symbolize death. Martinez symbolizes the remembering of the forgotten memory. The blackbird is sent to restore the memory of Richard's prior to fulfilling the contract with the stranger. Why is the story entitled Martinez? The blackbird had become the face of the story, as it is the one which had awakened the harsh reality in Richard Servasio's fate. Martinez is the symbolism in the story that those who are unfamiliar with one's own culture will be punished by the loss of their ancient identity and history. And lastly, what lesson can we learn from the story? Sanchez wants us to teach us the importance of culture as part of our identity. It is a bitter truth that as time evolves, the fruitfulness of our culture, which had taught us values, traditions, and gave us identity, is slowly being neglected and forgotten by the younger generation. The loss of memory and practice leads to the demise of one's culture. The moral to love one's culture by practicing what it had taught and sharing it to the next bearer of the generation's identity. Here are the three guided questions. What aspect of the story did you find the most horrifying and why? As far as I can tell, that the aspect of horizon of the story it really is horrifying as the story might happen in real life because of her ingenious ideas of making a horror story that it is yet terrifying and that it would not be changed to the fact that the horror horror story benefits its cultures to the generations as what was Richard witnessed about Martinez will change his life forever. But it might lead him to the great danger and there is no turning back from it. And it is developed that to the spiritual cultures of dealing with beliefs and leading to scares that can face off to it. And many more to come, however, we can deal with the fears by made out of hope. What do you think of the stranger? Is she similar to any other character in Filipino folklore or superstition? The stranger is kind of a trustable person whenever the signs of danger approaching in, as it was foretold that she is a good Samaritan that would lead them into safety in most possible ways. Whether she can have a lot of chances of surviving this dreadful path they have witnessed. Although she might be a little suspicious to someone she have met, but whether if she is trustable or not, because a stranger could control and see what's worth a problem that wouldn't cause as it is match for any other intellect that can designate it again compared to the superstition. What do you think are the insights of the story about the old country or the province? What are its insights about modern Filipinos? Do you agree or disagree? My own thoughts in the insights of the story is how a main character's small lack of obedience may have been included amongst the story of horrifying scenes that are explicit, however. It might whether agree or disagree to the facts that the insight of this story might have happened. Sometimes sometimes to the modern Filipinos, as far as I can tell that the entire story explains us about the warning and taking vigilance of what is going on around you. So that I agree that all of the storytellers can tell how much that we remind us that remind to I mean to remind the people would keep on lookout from the disbeliefs and mistrust that they shouldn't encounter with. So this is all for today, and thank you everyone so much for watching. I'll see you in another day. Bye bye.